Sean, in addition to sharing a bit about your background, please share a little bit about the role that you think business can play and is playing in the fight against human trafficking in particular. And it would be great if you could talk a bit about the new business coalition that you're forming.
Happy to. So thank you all, and thank you Womenetics for inviting me here today. It's been terrific. I've met a lot of fantastic women. So I'm Dawn Conway. I'm the Senior Vice President of Corporate Responsibility for LexisNexis. And a key part of my responsibilities is really focusing on two signature issues for us: advancing the rule of law and protecting and safeguarding children. I also oversee our Lexis Cares program, and that is our volunteerism and our community give back, as well as our financial support. I've been with the company actually 20 years today. I looked at the day, I said, oh my gosh, today was my first day in 1990, 20 years ago. And I'm a lawyer by background, and I did not, I've been in corporate responsibility for a year. And I think the reason that they asked me to come and run corporate responsibility, so I come from a very business perspective, is because of my passion for the law. Being a lawyer, I ran global licensing for the company for 10 years, along with other things. I've been very involved with the National Association of Women Lawyers, of which we started the Nights of Giving, where we have incorporated philanthropy into our networking sessions. I've been involved in the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group for LexisNexis. I'm also the liaison to the American Bar Association Center for Human Rights. So in addition to my day job of running licensing, I was really on the fringes of corporate responsibility. So it was such a great marriage to bring my love of law and women's rights and giving back to this role. LexisNexis, for those of you who don't know us, we're a $4.5 billion company with about 16,000 employees around the world. We employ more than 2,000 lawyers, as I said, of which I am one. We provide content-enabled workflow solutions to the legal markets, risk management, accounting, academic, and business. But we're dedicated to corporate responsibility. That's something that you may not know about LexisNexis. I mean, if you have used us, like in the academic market for research, you think of us as a large research institution. But we really are a company who have incorporated philanthropy and giving back into our culture. Last year alone, our employees donated more than 800,000 hours around the world. And in giving back, and I'll talk about our efforts around human trafficking in a minute, but in addition to those 800,000 hours, we also, in terms of in-kind, our products, solutions, etc., and our people, we donated close to $14 million in support of these issues. Meaningful, sustainable economic and civic progress can only occur in societies where the rule of law exists. And even where the rule of law exists, such as in the United States, but is not uniformly applied. Big misconception that we have uniform laws around human trafficking here in the US. Likelihood of human atrocities continue, such as trafficking of persons against their will. According to Kevin Bales, who's the co-founder of Free the Slaves, there are 27 million slaves in the world today. That is more than at any time in our history. And sadly, 80% of those slaves are women. Human trafficking is on par with arms dealing. It's the second largest criminal industry in the world today, second only to the global drug trade. It spans all sectors, from brothels to sweatshops, from private homes to domestic workers. It is an invisible crime because you just don't see it. And it isn't something that just happens to people in faraway countries like Cambodia or other, that we've talked about today. It is happening right here in the US, and it's happening right here in Atlanta. And Atlanta being one of the top places for trafficking. It really is modern day slavery. We feel that LexisNexis is in a unique position, and we feel we have an obligation as a company to leverage our resources, our expertise, and our products and solutions in this fight. So what have we been doing? Through our partnerships with our customers, we work with a lot of law firms. We provide them with pro bono access to our products in support of doing pro bono work. We also partner with the International Justice Mission, providing them with free software so that they can manage their cases around the world. We support the Polaris Project, which is the only government-backed national hotline for human trafficking victims to call in. And what we did for them is we actually took our core competency, which is creating searchable databases, and took content that they were using off of Excel spreadsheets, put it into a searchable database so that when a victim calls in, they can connect them with a law enforcement immediately. Because when that victim is calling in, they usually only have minutes before, in order to really be saved. We also support the Somali Mom Foundation. You may have heard of Somali Mom. She herself was a victim of sex trafficking, sold into the sex trade at the age of 12 in Cambodia. We helped her set up her foundation here in the US about 4 years ago, really driving awareness. That was really our first foray into this area, is driving awareness. And we did that through a couple of films, Holly and Red Light. And I was hoping that you got a chance to see the trailer for Red Light. I think it was supposed to be going on at lunchtime today. But we hosted the film Holly, which is the story of a 12-year-old Vietnamese girl who was sold into a life of sexual slavery at the age of 12. And we took that film to 12 cities around the world. 10 here in the US, and then also including London, Sydney, and Amsterdam. And what we did is we brought stakeholders, our customers, etc., to really drive awareness around this issue. The sequel, Red Light, just debuted in June in New York, and we just showed it in Washington, D.C. That is also a documentary that features sexual or child sexploitation that was narrated by Lucy Liu, so you may have heard some talk about that. As part of our promotion of the rule of law and commitment to driving awareness, we will continue to show that film around the world. However, I am passionate about looking and showing at other films. So there is a film that will debut at Luxor in Egypt later this year, and in New York in January, called Not My Life. And this is a film that was filmed on 5 continents, including the US, because it is in our own backyard. And I don't want anyone to leave here with a misperception that human trafficking is somewhere else, that it's over there. It's next door. The demand for girls continues to rise despite the admirable efforts by governments, NGOs, and law enforcement. Research conducted by A Future Not a Past, which is an organization right here in Georgia, confirmed that the demand for victimization of minors as sex trafficking victims is growing at an alarming rate. And I just want to share with you the statistic from that. So this study was done in May of this year, in 2010. And what they did is it shows that at the rate right now, there are 405 victims per month. 75% of them are sold over the internet. The methodology that they use shows that domestic minor sex trafficking on the internet, if unaddressed, will rise, just in Georgia, to nearly 1,500 victims per month in Georgia by mid-2013. That is going in the wrong direction in terms of the needle. On the positive side, there have been a lot more media attention on this issue. Craigslist and some of this other have brought more media attention. If you just run a search on human trafficking in the last 6 months, there's more than 3,000 articles on this subject. And as recently as this week, 29 people were arrested for trafficking girls as young as 12 into sex slavery in Minneapolis, Nashville, and Columbus, Ohio. So make no mistake, it is happening here. We believe that the corporate sector has an even bigger role to play. We sat back and looked at it. We've been driving awareness. We have been utilizing our products and services in support of this movement. But what can businesses do together? What is the role of business in this movement? So we felt that with our communication and marketing resources, that businesses have a unique opportunity to really galvanize public awareness and educate their employees, their customers, and their suppliers. So earlier this year, We hired, as a senior advisor, Ambassador Mark Lagon, who was a former ambassador for the Trafficking in Persons Office under the Bush administration. And he helped us set up a business coalition, or at least a first meeting. I'm pleased that Coca-Cola was there. We had 12 companies, 12 Fortune 500 companies. We met for the first time in Washington, D.C. last month. It was a cross-sector from all sectors, and we broadly agreed that collaboration between businesses would leverage our unique resources, eliminate duplication, and really drive transformative change. So stay tuned. We expect to have a more formal rollout in 2011, but I do think that businesses coming together truly have a role in this. So what can you do? There is some handouts in the back. We do leave after we have a film, what a call to action, but I thought I would just highlight just a couple. One is learn and spread the word. Human trafficking reaches virtually every country in the world. Learn about the facts and issues and spread the message to your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And there are a number of resources on that sheet. Take a stand. Write your Congress or your city officials. We were signatory to the Uniform Law Commission this past July, who meet every 2 years, encouraging them to create model laws here in the U.S. So I'm happy to say that they accepted that. They will be creating a model law for human trafficking across all 50 states. And LexisNexis will be an observer in that process. Also, the toll-free number that's listed in the handout. If you see a trafficked victim or you suspect something, please have that number handy. One of our employees who was trained on what to look for was in New York, in LaGuardia, saw some signs, and this girl was a girl that had just flown in from Russia. And she actually called the 1-800 number, and it was because of her training. So I encourage you to really look for and be trained on what to look for. And lastly, for those of you who are affiliated with a corporation, consider getting involved with the Business Coalition. I really believe that the only way to eradicate this appalling trade in human beings, this industry of misery, is to get corporate and people like you involved. So thank you for listening. And I hope you will consider joining this fight against what I think is the world's cruelest and, unfortunately, fastest growing, invisible crime that we have today.
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, very indeed. Sobering statistics, but it is great to know what LexisNexis is doing, and I think we all would agree that a multi-stakeholder approach to address this issue is the way to go, and we'll talk a little more about that in a minute. So thank you. That was excellent.